Welcome to the podcast Appetite for Horror episode number 14. My name is Brando. We've had a bit of a break since episode 13, a 3-month break, I guess with the good reason. I'm a dad. I had a kid. I think I alluded to that with my last episode when I interviewed father-son duo. Maybe I knew ahead of time, Frank and Remy Grillo. About the resurrection of Charles Manson movie, which, by the way, is on Tubi for free, by the way, which is just still the best site to find horror movies. I had a kid, Harrison Rex. I call him Horror Harrison, David Brody, for the sake of, talking about horror movies.
Okay.
What we're going to talk about today, I spent a lot of time with him, which is completely, because there's nothing to do. Like, because you have kids. It's been a while since they've been babies. But there's
been a while, yeah,
to do, but make sure they're alive and breathing, and to hold them, and because they cry as soon as you put them down. So I've spent a lot of my time continually watching horror movies and rewatching and binging The Walking Dead, which I did not expect to do. I posted like pictures on social media of him just asleep on me with the most obscene horror depiction on the screen. I'm really getting him started early, hoping the sounds of zombies eating flesh just goes into his infant body and see the kind of human being it creates.
Yeah, well, someday when he becomes a mass murderer, they'll look back at those photos and say, I wonder if there's a connection.
It'll be my fault. No, I absolutely admit it. It's and I'll say this before I forget it. I was rewatching Terrifier 2, by the way. I don't know if you've seen the Terrifier.
No, I haven't. But is it better than Terrifier 1?
It's
or Terrifier? It didn't have a 1 in front of it. So Terrifier?
It's good. It's definitely very good. And I will say there are just scenes, just like in the first Terrifier, that make you go, wow, I can't believe, like, how did they do that? That if you weren't as distorted as me, you might throw up. But I'm like, whoa, this is so cool. But there's a scene in Terrifier 2, he's like kind of getting cranky on me. And he's not watching the screen. But there's a weird dream sequence where they're singing a clown cafe song, it's just really
as
hokey,
one does, sure.
And that lulls him to sleep. So I don't know. Some horror movies have proven to help tiny children. Just wanted to get that out there.
Okay. I like the way you said he's not as distorted as you. Well, you have an appetite for distortion from what I understand. So
I like that. I appreciate that. So that I have done, and actually Horror Harrison, which I give him the nickname for that podcast.
Well, you just call him Horrorson.
I will now. Thank you for that.
He's your son. It's horror. He's your horror son.
Wow. All right. See, that's why I brought you on here. Beautiful.
That's it.
I love
maybe
it.
We should tell people who don't know who I am and why I'm here.
I know, probably. Well,
I mean, in addition to being a friend of yours for many years,
my radio buddy David Brody. Yeah. Before we get, because we haven't spoken in a while, and I'm enjoying it too much. So please, tell us what you do.
Well, I think the last time we spoke, we did a Appetite for Distortion podcast episode where we interviewed Tony Harnell of TNT.
Mm-hmm.
I love TNT, and I'm a big fan of Tony's. Right now, he's on some monster tour in Europe with like Iron Maiden and Metallica and Pantera and 100 other heavy metal acts. So I wish they did it here in America, but they don't. So TNT got back together since we did that interview.
Oh, that's
and
true.
He's touring with them. So very happy for him and the band, and he should be their singer forever. In addition to all that, I am the co-host of the Brooklyn Boys podcast, which is what that logo is behind me. Available on all platforms, but it's an iHeart Radio Premiere production. It's a comedy podcast from two people from the same neighborhood in Brooklyn, and we have a lot of Brooklyn attitude, and we talk about events of the day and our life experience, and I think it's pretty damn funny. I was also the co-host of the now defunct Walkers and Talkers podcast, where my co-host Jamie and I broke down every episode with humor and knowledge of The Walking Dead and all of its many spinoffs. We did that from season 6 of The Walking Dead through almost the end of the run of The Walking Dead. We did Fear the Walking Dead. We did Preacher. I think we did World Beyond, which was terrible.
Yep.
And you can find that on all podcast platforms. So if you're new to The Walking Dead or you're rewatching it and you want a full breakdown of each episode, you can do that. But today we're talking about The Walking Dead, which I love and I'm very excited about. Oh yeah, for many years I was one of the executive producers and comedy writers for the Elvis Duran and the morning show, nationally syndicated morning show on radio. And I'm doing this now with Brandon. So that's really the highlight of my existence.
You're so much more than just a highlight reel, David Brody, and that's
Thanks.
how I know you from the iHeart days, and that's where I am now. And I'm lucky that this is on the iHeartRadio app and everywhere you can get your podcasts. You can watch the video on our YouTube channel, and because I'm trying to, like I said, I'm getting my. This is all segueing. Harrison, my horror son, to get into horror. I've gotten him some horror onesies. He's got a Chucky one already. He's got the Jason mask that says "Mama's Boy." He got a cartoon Freddy Krueger that says "Follow your dreams." So I'm already prepping him.
Good. A lot of parents would want him to be a doctor or a lawyer or an athlete or an astronaut. I see you going right for a horror fan. Hopefully, fan from a distance.
Well, that's the point of this episode, because I got no one to talk to about it. My wife will occasionally watch a horror movie if it's not too bloody with me, but she's very squeamish. So I will be in the same chair I'm in now, watching something horrible with my son on my chest, and she'll be on the couch across, and just the sounds that come out of my speakers. Again, zombies eating flesh, people screaming for help. So she's just like, can you just lower that just a little bit? So I got no one to talk to about it. So having rewatched The Walking Dead, I need to vent and to talk about it and how my feelings changed since the first time around. Because the first time around, I was able to, I had some friends that watched it when it was new, when it was on every Sunday. I was big into going on Twitter back then and meeting, because that was that's one of the fun things about Twitter. I don't know if it still is for people, is when there's a live event and everyone hashtagging. And that's how I love doing that for The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead. So this was a completely different experience. I just said to myself, I have a lot of time just alone with this kid. I just randomly started it from episode 1. And I think maybe in a month and a half, I finished the entire series.
Wow. Okay.
So I was thinking about maybe doing, because I can't talk to Harrison about it yet. So maybe I'll save this from when he's older. I made just like this morning, because if I took notes throughout the entire time, we would be here for hours on end. I can't do that, because there were just things that I appreciated more. There were things that bothered me. Just seeing how flawed some of the characters are, but that's the point of the show. I needed to vent with somebody, and of course with your Walkers and Talkers archive, we'll call it like that. And
okay, good, very good.
And you being a fan, more so, I think, because maybe you'll convince me to get back into Fear the Walking Dead, because I gave up on that. I almost gave up on The Walking Dead in the last season and a half, and just watched the finale, which I did not like at the time. So this kind of renewed it, especially as I finished binging on Netflix. Dead City premiered. So it's like it just continues. So this is something is continuing, and just I want to talk about it. And hopefully there are people out there that will talk about it with us when this episode comes out.
Well, I'm curious as to the differences you saw in the show from watching it weekly to binging it, because I find a lot of shows that are written to be seen every week don't play as well when you binge them, right? Because things are happening too quickly. Part of, for me, shows that are weekly, I like the suspense of waiting the next week. I like going on YouTube and watching breakdown videos and reading theories and Easter egg videos, or what did I miss? And in that week, then I'm all ready for the next episode. But if I binge a show, I'll give you, for instance, you and I are old enough. I think you're old enough to have watched Friends when it was new. Did you watch Friends? Okay. If you watched the show Friends on a weekly basis, then you played along with Ross and Rachel's trials and tribulations over the course of years. And when the season ended and she went to the airport to see him and he took off without her, and then he lands at, and you waited all summer, and he gets off the plane with his new girlfriend from China. You understood the angst of that whole time, right? And for you and for me, the Ross and relationship episode was 9 years, right? And you wanted some outcome. But if you watch the whole thing in a month, it's like, oh, he was with Rachel, they broke up, they were on a break, and then she was with Joey. It all happened in the span of a few weeks.
Mhm.
There was no time for you to latch on to anybody. And so I find that when I used to have an internship program at the morning show, the interns who all binged it because, it's a classic show, they all like, oh, I liked Rachel with Joey. Or I never understood the Ross and Rachel relationship. Well, yeah, because it was written to be years long. It doesn't play to watching it in 2 weeks.
Mm.
It's a whole different thing. It's like, again, going back a little bit further, but Cheers, Sam and Diane on the show. Again, it's an older show. The whole thing was a will they or won't they for years. But if that only lasts you 2 weeks, you don't get the angst and understand the tension from episode to episode. Because to you, it's like it only lasted a few hours, and then they were dating. So
Right.
I'm interested in The Walking Dead if it plays differently, binging it than week to week, and the Saviors being 2.5 seasons because people
Right.
thought that was very long
Right.
and it was too long under the thumb of Negan. But for someone who binges it, it might have been a week.
You're right. That's a great point. And something similar, I had that viewpoint when I binge watched. I've maybe 5 or 6 times already Lost, which
Mhm.
is it's one of my favorite shows ever, obviously.
Right.
But
What
that
about that
week to week-
craziness, the week to week of what did I watch? What's going to happen?
That
What are those numbers?
frustration and be like, oh, they got me again.
Yeah. The
So-
cloud.
So it was like that maybe at the beginning with the original cast, and knowing since I remember the first maybe 5, 6 seasons really well, I enjoyed the ride it going quickly. Because I knew where it was going, and I met characters that I remembered how much I hated. Like I hated Andrea. I couldn't wait for her to die. I couldn't.
Okay.
The original cast, because I guess she was so holier than thou, and everyone is suffering. She's like, my sister. I mean, everyone lost everybody.
Right. Well, she wasn't supposed to die. In the comics,
Mhm.
she's the one that has the long-term relationship with Rick, not Michonne. In the comics, Carol kills herself or allows herself to be killed by a walker very early on from being abused by her husband and the depression. She dies relatively quickly. And so the showrunner decided to kill Andrea. I think she had just bought a house, signed a long-term contract, and they were like, no, you're dying. So what are you talking about? I'm supposed to be the character that goes on with Rick. They're like, yeah, we're getting rid of you. And so they gave Carol the role, and then they gave Michonne the role of the dating part because Carol wasn't going to date Rick. And so maybe they didn't like the Andrea character either. I don't remember the reason for it, but she was pissed. She was for years. She was suing them, I think, because they had led her to believe she'd be there a while. So
this is why you're the right guy. See, I didn't know this. I'm watching this really as a fan. And, I did some of those Walking Dead wiki pages and read up on things as I'm going along and everything. And I'm glad you brought up the comics because shamefully, that's why I'm not a real nerd. I'm a poser nerd. I haven't read the comics. Maybe when Horrorson gets old enough, we'll read those graphic novels and I'll have that experience for the first time. But yeah, just like characters like her, because I guess found her the way she was written kind of annoying. Even though I liked Dale was funny, and I'm talking about the original season, because if you were ever a fan of The Walking Dead, I'm sure that original group sticks with you. There might be characters you forget along the way, but that original group, Shane and everyone. So, I mean, Daryl, I'm just waiting for him to die. I'm waiting for all the mistakes that Carl's making. I'm just waiting for them to happen. But I really paid attention to the arc of Rick, of course, again, because he was my favorite character. And that's kind of where I lost interest when he left the show. And Maggie when she came in, because she's continuing. So just to get through the original cast, but then to be reminded that they were going to DC, and then they found that they went to the CDC, and they were talking about just how how it affects everybody, and just breaking down the science of the world of why of how this happened or what's happening. But that was just being reminded of how much I wish that storyline continued, because that just died basically there. After that whole the CDC blew up, it was all about going from group to group to group to group, and whoever was the next leader. It was no more science. It was no more trying to figure this out. So just being reminded of like, I really loved where the show was going with that. When that door opened, when Rick's screaming, let us in, let us in.
Mhm.
And he finally let us in. And I'm like, wow, I can't wait to see where this goes. Just being reminded of that letdown and knowing, at least knowing this time, that that's it. Not like, oh, I wonder if they talk about how the disease started again. Just knowing that's not going to happen helped me enjoy and get through things quicker.
Well, I think that's why they did that. They didn't want you trying to find a cure every season. They wanted to make sure you knew there was no hope, except for Eugene, who had the cure. You know, he knew how to fix that thing. I will tell you, if you, I'm sure you are aware, but in case you're not, Dr. Jenner, I believe was his name. Jenner was the guy at the CDC. Well, he shows up again at the end of Walking Dead World Beyond because they find they're in France and they find, I think it was a DVD player or a video of Jenner talking about how the virus started. And in France, they had walkers that can run and open doors and climb, which we saw towards the end of The Walking Dead.
Yes.
There was some variants, but apparently in France, that's a thing. That's how they are. And so The Walking Dead World Beyond was supposed to lead into the Rick and Michonne show and the Daryl spinoff, which takes place in France. So I think you're going to see more of Jenner and more of the history of the virus.
Oh, cool.
Even though there's no cure. So,
okay. Well, that's something. I appreciate that because there are plenty of things in this world that have no cure, but I just want to know how this happened, why this happened. I mean, the closest thing we've had recently is COVID. We all have our theories, but at least like we can kind of trace it back. Is it a bat? Was it, the government, whatever? So I want to at least have more of that.
I don't know if they're, well, it implied, if I remember correctly, because it's almost a year ago, I think they implied it was an experiment that got out of hand, but they didn't really come out and fully say it. According to Kirkman, who's not involved with the show anymore.
Okay.
He said he would never reveal the origins of the virus.
Okay.
Completely.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean he won't, and it doesn't mean the show won't allude to it. But it sounded like it was man-made and it got out of hand.
Something more. I want something more, but that's good. You've got me a little bit more excited, and which sounds weird out of context, but if you mentioned The World Beyond, which I tried the first few episodes, and I guess it harkens back to a lot of my feelings rewatching The Walking Dead, because I hate every single child actor.
All of them.
All of them. I mean, not the actors are wonderful actors, which are wonderful people in real life, but every single kid, I guess I hate them all. I'm like, Harrison, I'm looking at him like, I would not teach you. I would train you to be better in the zombie apocalypse than all these kids that either are like Carl, who just thinks that they can personally save the world by saving strangers, or just be a dumb. I had to write down some of these.
That didn't work out well for him, by the way.
No, it didn't. Or like Sam and Henry. Just like these wimpy kids that try to be. I hated it. I didn't want to watch the whole show about kids.
The two kids from season 6 you're talking about, Sam and what was his brother's name?
Henry. Right?
Henry, yeah. Sam and no, Henry was the from the Kingdom.
Oh right, yeah, you're right.
But anyway, Sam from season 6, he was supposed to be an idiot kid who was going to get killed, But World Beyond was supposed to be, from where they pitched it, was people who lived in a closed area, but it was going to be more about a younger generation that grew up in the apocalypse. But I assumed that meant real badass fighters who've grown up knowing how to fight. Instead, it was like watching a Disney program where like, oh, do I hit him with a brick? Do I hit him with I don't know what to do. Oh my, how do you not train the kids? You got to get them in the head, and like, they took training, but they didn't, and they weren't good at it. And it was just, the whole thing was stupid. The whole thing was a tease to get you to watch, because you hoped it would tell you more about where Rick was and the CRM, and the logo and all of that, and where Jadis was from, and what that whole story was. Right. Because that was retconned. I don't think that the garbage people had anything to do with. I know that there was a CRM logo on a can of food she ate once, but I don't know if that's where it was going back then, that she was going to be a general in the military. And, I don't know. I think they retconned a lot of that, but World Beyond was terrible. Everyone on the show was terrible. The writing was terrible. The actors were terrible. The kids were awful, and it was just awful. It was painful, and I had to watch it because I was doing the Walkers and Talkers podcast.
Okay, right.
And you're obligated. You're like, oh, what? Then why did you watch it, David? Well, I watched it because I was like, oh, we have to review it, and maybe there'll be a breadcrumb about Jadis or CRM or Rick or anything. And it took most of the season to find out anything. And then I don't know spoilers, but when anyone died on the show or lost a limb, you're like, good. There's less of that person I have to worry about.
Right. See, exactly. And it was Sam and Ron is the older brother.
Yes. And if you don't care about the characters dying on a show, then there's no point in watching the show. The thing that made The Walking Dead great the first few seasons was anybody could die at any moment. And then when it became a hit, then it became no one's really going to die except maybe peripheral people and new characters and maybe someone that wants off the show.
Mm-hmm. And
right.
And I wasn't rooting, other than like Andrea, I wasn't really rooting for anybody to die. That happened when I was watching Feared the Walking Dead, which maybe I gave up season 3 or 4. I'm like, I hate everybody. And there were less zombies, I felt, in that series, or at least in the first few couple seasons, than The Walking Dead. Because even if there were characters I didn't like or an episode I didn't like, there was enough gore or something else to whet my appetite. So
but even The Walking Dead, I think the last gory thing that they showed, maybe I could be wrong, was the redheaded woman who she's in a lot of Hallmark movies. She
Mhm.
was one of the
The Negans?
Negan, what was his group called again? I forget. This they lived at the sanctuary. Saviors, yeah. She was one of the saviors, and it was when Carol and Maggie were held up, and the redhead was torturing Carol. They got captured, and then the zombie bit her face off, like pulled her cheek.
Yeah.
After that, they toned down the violence, they toned down the gore, and even like you watch now, a Dead City. If people get killed, they just get swarmed, but you don't see anything.
There was that one scene with Negan where he showed the old Negan. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, he cut a guy's throat. We could
and his
say
stomach and guts and whatever. I mean, if you're listening to this, spoiler alert, if it's too late for anything,
it was almost cartoonish, and it was, and that scene made no sense. If we're talking about it, let's talk about it.
Okay.
He kills the guy, and it was nobody in the show you care about, so it's not like you're spoiling anything. And there's people from this group, right? Negan and Maggie show up. The whole show is coincidences. That's it. That's all that show is. They show up, and I'll list some of them, but they show up at this. Again, it's Manhattan. They're looking for a man who kidnapped Maggie's kid. That's the plot of the show. In the island of Manhattan, a massive place with massive buildings. Any one building is bigger than where they've ever been in Georgia.
Right.
They find people who seems the only survivors who are at war with the guy they're looking for. The one day they show up is when they get raided by the bad guys they're looking for. And then when he cuts the guy's throat open, the people at the bottom of the balcony on the floor, they don't move.
And that's I know. Why are you sitting there while he's putting his intestines and guts on you?
Right. So everything's falling. Then he throws his
Move.
body over and they don't move. It was like they were looking at a green screen and they didn't time it right. Because if you throw blood and none of them got splattered, there's no thought process. There's so much killing, but nobody gets blood on them. Right. The little girl, Jenny, Negan's girl, she somehow finds a motorcycle 12 years after the apocalypse or whatever it's been that has enough gas, and she knows how to ride a motorcycle from Virginia to Manhattan with no problem, no walkers that stop her or get in the way. Nobody jumps her. No one tries to take a motorcycle from her. She just finds a motorcycle, goes to New Jersey, and then finds something to float over to Manhattan. And again, goes exactly where Negan and Maggie are. That's ridiculous. That she ends up in the same bill. And the detective, the sheriff.
Oh, yeah.
He finds them. First of all, why is he going to Manhattan looking for them? Second of all, you land on Manhattan. They left no clues as to where they were. He finds the building they're hiding in. if you're listening to this podcast or watching it, you've never been to Manhattan. I can't explain to you that on any given day, I know that it's the apocalypse. There's, I don't know, 8 million people walking around. There are skyscrapers. The short skyscrapers are 40, 50 stories, the short ones. And somehow everybody finds everybody. And then there's 10,000 walkers surrounding Madison Square Garden. And then the guy blows open his own doors and all the walkers come in. And when I say all the walkers, I mean like 100. And somehow, because I was thinking to myself, why don't they run up the stairs at the Madison Square Garden, which, by the way, was the Brendan Byrne Arena in New Jersey. They didn't even film it in New York.
Oh, okay.
Why don't you run up the stairs? Walkers can't run upstairs. But then they show walkers coming down from the second floor. How did the walkers break into the building on the first floor, find their way to the second floor at the same speed as the walkers who are on the first floor?
These are good questions. Then
they're all standing there. You had already seen previously, there's an octagon, like a steel cage match, a UFC cage, in the middle of the floor of what they're saying is Madison Square Garden, right? It's up 2 steps from the ground. So to get on the platform, you climb 2 steps. And then if you want, you open the gate and would get in there and fight. Well, there's, I don't know, 8 of them that are now on the floor of the arena, standing right outside a caged octagon. And when hundreds of walkers pile in, they decide to fight them in all directions rather than fight their way through one direction, but also go in the cage. Go in the cage. You have a lockable gated cage you can hide in, but none of them do that. All they had to do was walk up a step. Walkers can't go up the steps very quickly. Go up 2 steps, and now you have height advantage over them. No, they all go at them head on, and of course, all the non-stars of the show get eaten. But you don't see it; they just get surrounded. You saw the episode, right?
I haven't seen that one yet.
I won't ruin it for you then. I won't tell you who lives, who dies. But here's what I'll tell you, because we're doing a podcast, and you said we're doing spoilers. I won't tell you anything.
Okay.
There's a couple on the show, a male and a female couple.
Because I've seen the first 3 episodes, I believe.
Okay, you're about to see it. And the male of the couple in this fight gets pulled down and pulled away by 30, 40 walkers. And the female screams, no, like you would, right?
Yeah.
And then they go about fighting, and then the whole show happens. And later on in the episode, because you didn't see the guy die, he just comes out of nowhere and he's back. Now, if you saw your loved one and you thought they were eaten by zombies, all of a sudden appear fine, what would your reaction be, Brandon?
I would be confused.
Right, but also happy.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're alive. She looks at him and goes, let's go. Like, let's run this way. No reaction. Now, if the writers don't think of that, wouldn't the actress say, well, shouldn't I be excited to see my partner? I thought he was dead. Now he's not. And I look at him and go, huh.
Like it's nothing.
Right. That's the kind of writing on the show.
Well, now that I have your narration, I'm going to really think I'm going to enjoy this, the new Dead City.
Sorry, guys, if I gave away too much, I apologize. I really didn't give away any major plot points other than there's a lot of holes in the plot. Every episode.
I guess that's kind of this is a big word. I know, juxtaposition of watching these kind of things in horror in general, the decisions people make. And I mean, obviously they have to make bad decisions. Otherwise there wouldn't be a show. There wouldn't be
right. But things have to make sense.
Things have to make sense.
Maggie hasn't seen Negan in years and she wants to find him. So she just goes and finds him.
Well, that's part of the decisions where I'm like, did I even want to watch Dead City? And if I didn't do the rewatch, I mean, maybe I would have watched the first episode. Reason being, after, again, spoiler alert, Negan bashes in Glenn's head and Maggie's there to witness it, her husband and everything. How can that ever be okay? How can they have a series together? So just going through and seeing what Maggie became and watching her relationship again with Glenn, how it started. I mean, I know it's Hollywood. I know there are a lot of in Hollywood, usually the fat, ugly guys with the beautiful girl. I mean, she's out of.
Glenn was cute.
Yeah, he was cute, but I mean, Maggie's, I don't know.
I know you're in a zombie apocalypse, Brandon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So You take what you can get, and I think they were fine.
Yeah,
My
no, they were
problem,
fine.
my problem with the
There were
the,
worse
Ne-
couples.
the Negan Maggie relationship,
The Nagy,
the Nagy, right, or the Megan,
the
or the Megan. My problem with the relationship is that they're trying very hard. She's trying hard not to forgive him, and he's trying hard to show her, hey, look, we all did what we had to do. You guys killed 30 of my people before I ever met you.
right.
All I did was kill 2 people. Glenn killed people in their sleep at that
Yes.
satellite building, right?
Right. Mhm.
So listen, they were blackmailing Hilltop and they were blackmailing Kingdom. They weren't good people. Let's not make them out to be good guys. But they weren't that much worse than Rick's group.
right.
They weren't as bad as the Terminus people, but
Right.
they were bad. And look, he reveled in killing Glenn. He probably didn't need to kill Glenn. He was making a point. But over the course of his redemption arc, and he's
Mhm.
done some things. He saved Herschel in the snowstorm,
Mhm.
right? I think it was Herschel who he saved, right?
Yeah. No,
and he
her
saved
son.
Herschel in The Walking Dead again, when they were in that apartment building. He's done enough. You know, he killed Alpha, even though he burned down Hilltop. Spoiler. He's done some things to earn some credibility back, but I don't remember what episode it was on Dead City. But he's talking to Maggie about how I was only Negan, the bad Negan, to keep my people together.
Right.
I was only doing that to be their leader. I was only doing that because it's what I thought was the best way to keep them safe. That sounds really good, except he made people kneel. He ironed their faces.
Mhm.
He stole people's wives and had sex with them, which
Right.
is, even though he was against rape, he coerced women to be his wives,
Right.
or he would throw them out. So don't tell me you were saving them. You saved the women if they slept with you.
Yeah, that was a dumb answer. The
Right.
the more appropriate answer is what you were talking about, and that's also part of the rewatch is seeing how who is really good, who's really bad. Because a lot of the this is something else I did differently this time. I didn't watch Talking Dead, which I spent a lot of
Oh,
time. So I
so
would
good.
watch it. So I would watch that after the episodes, and that would be how I would kind of vent by watching that and tweeting. But to see Rick's arc of where he was, and he's somebody that killed his best friend, Shane,
Oh, well, he needed to, though.
in the second. I know, but there are episodes like did he need to, or could he have jailed him like he did Negan?
I think he knew that Shane. Well, listen, Rick grew in the series, right? He saw
Right.
there was redemption for people years and years later. Don't forget when he killed Negan, or I mean, it cut Negan's throat. There were time jumps, right? So that was like 6 years later than when he killed Shane.
Yes,
And
yes,
you know,
'cause he was in jail for a
subconsciously,
long time.
he
Yeah.
also knew that
Oh,
Shane
right.
banged his wife and was Carl's father.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
but I think he killed Shane because Shane didn't just kill Otis. Shane was a killer. Shane was everything Rick was fighting to stop happening in an apocalypse, that they needed to be better than that. And look, Shane was trying to kill him. If you rewatch the scene, they
yeah.
were fighting with each other. Rick didn't just walk up and kill him.
But no, Shane was plotting that. I'm just wondering if it could have played out differently because of how Rick changes and how he treats certain people that were deemed enemies later on. And it's
Yeah, but
like,
don't forget he had communities. He had an actual jail cell that was built. He had a lot of resources.
Mhm.
When that happened at Herschel's farm, they didn't know where their next meal was coming from. They didn't know, you know. So I think he knew that there was no saving Shane. He knew he was a hot-headed cop, but now he's willing to kill anyone for any reason. He killed that kid in the woods, you know, that they were going to release.
oh, Randall. Yeah, I wanted
Right,
to bring him
Randall.
up. Yeah.
Right.
Who
He
was,
killed him.
The dad from The Marvelous Miss Maisel.
Right. The fact that they opened up the barn, you know, he destroyed whatever Herschel was trying to do with the barn. Now, it was the right move to open up the barn because he was keeping walkers as pets, but
Yeah.
he was a loose cannon. He was, and he wasn't fixable. You could have sent him off, but he wouldn't have left. He would have said, "This was my group. You joined us."
Then
So
it's interesting to see the arc, though, again, of Rick, who has so many ups and downs, where, and this is after, and Lori dies, and Rick just freaking loses his mind, almost comes to blow with Glenn. Very quickly, with the prisoners, and just the way he treats people is very different. But then he'll become, Farmer Rick. And I know I'm jumping around here. It's either like what he did with Randall and wanting to save people, or it was, I think it might have been with one of these saviors where he's like, it's a man's word. It's, that we'll get up and we'll get out of here. They were all trapped in a cabin, and zombies were coming in, walkers were coming in, and Rick ends up, and he was with him and Morgan, and Rick ends up shooting these guys. And he's like, I thought one of the guys is dying. He's like, you gave our word, give your word. He's like, I was lying. I was lying.
Oh, when they were in the barn.
Yeah. So there, just to see him go from, he looked at the deer when he was talking about Carl when he got shot. The first thing that when he woke up, he spoke about the deer. He spoke about something beautiful, not the dead. Like he wants to save everybody. But again, there are times like, what's this? Go in, and I get Terminus needed to have that happen. Go in and just start killing people. Or when they hit that outpost for the saviors and they killed people in their sleep. So he was like that too. So there was like Shane in him. And I guess part of it is rewatching that Shane character, wondering what he would have done too. Like, or maybe wishing I got some more episodes out of him, knowing how long they dragged Negan out.
Well, I think Shane was a foreshadowing of like Shane got to the place he got to sooner than everybody else did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shane was already there. Shane had already seen enough. He's like, we got to kill people. We got to, whatever we got to do to survive.
Yeah.
I think Rick being asleep in the coma for a year, whatever it was, I don't think he had a full understanding of when the world fell apart, what people had to do to get to that point. We never saw that on Walking Dead. We saw it on Fear. But we never saw the collapse of the government and the pandemonium and what you had to do to get to that point where those people found each other. Rick woke up and Georgia was a mess. Atlanta was shut down. He missed all of that. So maybe he would have had a better understanding of where Shane was. But still, the Otis thing, that was hard. That was harsh when they,
That was harsh. I mean, to make that kind of decision where Otis is a good guy, Shane wasn't being a bad guy, but in that moment, I think, but he was like, I have to, it's either we're both going to die or I'm going to die. I got to sacrifice this guy.
Well, if he did it to save Glenn, which, not Glenn. Yeah, Glenn, right. I'm sorry. I alluded to, I think I said earlier that Shane was Judith's father, not Glenn. Shane was Judith's father. I think I said Shane was Glenn's father. Shane was Judith's father.
And they were they were trying to save what's the Carl?
Carl.
They were trying to get
I don't know why I said Glenn. Carl is what I meant. Yeah.
That's fine.
So he was trying to save Carl with the supplies they needed. And so if he dragged Otis, if he and Otis ran, maybe they wouldn't have gotten away. But you're certainly not going to let Otis get away if you shoot him in the leg. So
right. Oh yeah, he made a decision like I'm the one getting away, coming back. So it's one of those decisions like him or me. And I guess those are the good moral decisions that come up in the show. Like, what would you do at that time? I don't think those are maybe the bad decisions, or some people I think like make bad decisions. Like, why did you do this? Like, I just think it was such a silly decision, like how Carl died. Like, I just think it was really dumb the risk he's taking at that point to save one person. Yeah, he didn't know he was a doctor. He was just saving a life. And I understand that was a point that he was making and the letters that he wrote and all this, but it just the domino effect of just some of the silliness of that kid Henry at the kingdom trying to save the Lydia from the Whisperers. And everyone just keeps dying. I'm like, who in the long run, it was kind of just like a waste of a storyline to save somebody. It was a big deal. But you fast forward, that person died anyway for like no reason. So
but did they die 5 years later or 3 years later? I mean,
right.
You want the Carl thing was a dumb way to go.
Yeah.
It was, and to get bitten on the side and we didn't even see it happen really. And then it was like, oh yeah, I got bit. I thought that was a weak way for him to go. And the actor who played the the character he saved, the doctor, you know, he didn't last that long, but he did save lives along the way.
Yes.
You know, and by the way, Avi Nash, who played him, I'm drawing a blank on his name. It's been a while. Do you remember the doctor's name?
I don't. It was one of those characters that I guess, I mean, I can look it up now, but it's just one of those characters I didn't initially care about. And
Right.
I cared about more so later. And I realized what you're saying, that he did impact other people. And he ended up being the father of Rosita's baby.
He
So
was
it's
Sadiq.
Sadiq. There you
Yeah,
go.
Sadiq. The actor who played Sadiq, Avi Nash, was on Silo, which I'm watching now, which is a sci-fi show on Apple TV. And I'm like, oh my God, there's Sadiq.
Okay.
So, he's a good actor. I like him. He's good. But the fact that he had to live with the burden that Glenn died because of him, I thought that was a nice, well-written thing that he carried on Glenn's legacy.
Carl died because of him, right?
I keep saying Glenn. I'm sorry, Carl died. I did a podcast for The Walking Dead. It's just, I'm sorry. It's been a year since I did the podcast. So
no,
yes,
it's okay.
Carl died because of saving Sadiq. So he always carried that with him, that, you know, I'm here for a reason. And Carl had this vision of what society should be. I get it. I just think he was overly careless for a guy who's Rick's son. It seemed foolish to go the way it did.
The carelessness and just a little minutia thing that I would notice just with any of the characters when they're like creeping up on either walkers or another group. How do you not? And I think this even continued in the excuse me, in Dead City. How do you not look down at your feet and see if you're going to step on a piece of broken glass or a twig? Like, how is that not part of your, like when I leave the house, follow wallet, phone, keys? Like it should be, you look behind you, you look beneath you if you're going to make it, but it's continuously, so many fuck ups happen because you made that little sound on the ground. Just one of those things that has just continuously bothered me. If you're living in this world for years at this point, you should have a reactionary to-do list when you go out there.
Oh, absolutely. But how many times did we see people get killed because there was a walker coming up behind them and they turned around too late?
Right. So you should always have your head on a swivel.
Right. How do you not always like have your back against a wall? And if you're in the woods, have your back against a tree, but you should always be listening for walkers, but somehow they're like, you know, they turn around and it's on them. And the heroes always manage to keep them at arm's length from biting them. But the people that are the bad guys, they just go, and they get bitten.
Well, it's the old adage, like the old Indiana Jones movies. I know there are new ones, but like you can take 1,000,000 shots at Indiana Jones. He doesn't get hit, but he always take one shot at the bad guy and, you know, 5 of them fall down.
It's the Star Wars effect.
Yeah.
Pew, pew, pew.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be remiss because we would be here because it's so funny. Obviously this show has been broken down ad nauseum, not just by your podcast, but by other ones and TV shows and fan fiction. But again, I need to get this out because I have no one else to talk to about it. How underrated the governor was, I think, as a bad guy and a villain. It could have been easily, potentially be more evil than Negan because he could have had a redemption arc, but he didn't want it. Negan was trying to prove himself, I'm not that guy anymore. And you would say, like, when the governor killed like his old, lieutenant or whatever, when the governor was gone and he came back after he recruited that family and he killed that guy on top of when they were golfing off
on the RV, yeah,
in the RV, and he kills him with the golf club. He's like, I don't, he's like, oh, I'm not that guy anymore. No, you are still that guy.
Mm-hmm.
He never changed that he's that guy up until one of the most hurtful deaths for me, because I really love the character, the old Herschel. And Rick, we can change tears in his eyes, and you can see in some of like the in his people, the governor's people, like when you meet Tara, they're questioning it. He's like, never, no, liar, and he cuts him Herschel's head off with the sword. So that up until the bitter end, that the governor was just fucking evil.
Yeah,
he could have, like, you saw the moments where it's like almost he got his family back, his pseudo family back, where he's taking care of the young girl and he cares about her, but he didn't hesitate when she was bitten at all. When she was bitten by a zombie, just to shoot her in the head, didn't hesitate.
Yeah.
So I looking back, I'm like, everyone was all frothing at the mouth at my wife says that Jeffrey Dean Morgan is hot. good looking guy. But I mean, the governor was a good looking guy too, even with the eye patch.
Yeah.
But
You know what,
very
though?
underrated.
You look back at the governor's arc, and the guy, his assistant, the medical guy with
Yeah.
the redhead, he and what's you say you don't like her? What was her name?
Andrea.
Andrea. Sorry, I really am good with The Walking Dead. I swear. When he and Andrea, they had a chance to kill him, right? Remember, they were looking
twice, I think.
Right, they were looking at him from above, right, and they were like, "Okay, we can shoot him right now," and they chose not to.
Well,
And
he
then-
stopped her from shooting him.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And then he's he died because he died. The governor killed him, and then he bit Andrea.
I know.
So the two of them died, and they both could have been alive had they taken out the governor.
Yeah,
But they
because
didn't have the killer instinct.
Andrea could have done it because Carol suggested sleeping with him and killing him in his sleep, and she had that moment. And again, rewatching it in those moments, I'm like, man, you could have ended like a whole season, both of you, if you just killed the governor and so many other people. So it's like those silly.
But why didn't
decisions.
she kill him? Because it was wrong? Because she thought she saw good in him? She
Yeah.
thought she could change him? Or because she liked the lifestyle? She liked living in the town with the food and the electricity and everything else.
I think all of it, probably all of it, all of that. But yeah, seeing those moments frustrating again, not liking the Andrea character. And being
Well,
like,
that's why we're
you
both
could have
glad
done
she
something.
died. She could have done something, and she didn't.
Yeah,
Chose
yes.
not to. So
Yeah, well, again, these are the decisions that I guess make it fun for us to watch what we would do, if we were in the same situation. And I do like how it was almost like following a yellow brick road with Terminus to jump to that story. I'm going to jump around now because we could be here forever. And maybe we'll do this again because I mean we will do this again because I mean the shows are continuing, spinoffs and Rick movies or not movies. Terminus, that they had a place to go. They had a real destination. They weren't just like, let's try this city, let's try this town, and to see what those people turned into. And I thought it was pretty cool, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You saw the body parts, the blood. I just thought that was a fun story, very brutal, in the way they would slash throats and just have their blood pour out in this trough. Very, very brutal. That's the kind of you need to have that. I think in this kind of, if we were talking about how it kind of lessened in the later seasons, the brutality.
because the Glenn thing killed the ratings. A lot of people thought it was too over the top gory. A lot of people were sad that Glenn got killed because they love Glenn. And I don't think The Walking Dead knew what to fix first. They're like, we got to fix something. We got to fix something. Everyone's upset. And so they there was a scene where Daryl killed Joey, one of the saviors.
Okay.
And allegedly it was a much bloodier scene that they edited down to make it look like a very quick killing. That was the start of it. And they started interviewing people like, oh, when you filmed that scene, was it original? I don't know. I don't know. They're all playing dumb because The Walking Dead made a conscious effort to cut down on the gore, but the gore and the dying and the killing and all that was part of what the show was about. The show is about anyone could die at any moment. Even the lineup when the Whisperers killed all those people on the pikes. In the comic book, King Ezekiel was one of the heads, right? There was some, there was some other, oh God, I'm drawing a blank. Abraham's girlfriend.
I guess said her, why am I forgetting? I'm the one who rewatched it, so screw me. And she just died. I guess watched her die like a week ago.
Yeah. Rosita.
Yeah.
Sorry,
because Sadiq had Rosita's baby.
Right. So Rosita was killed in the comics.
Okay.
Spoiler. It was a bigger shock on the heads were on the pike. And they didn't like Ezekiel doesn't die. Like and I didn't want him to die, but that's my problem. The show was supposed to kill important people. And it's not like Ezekiel's done so much after that. He was fine. But what made him King Ezekiel was the tiger and the kingdom. Yeah. Once he lost that, he was just a guy with dreadlocks who Carol didn't want to be married to anymore.
Yeah.
He lost his son. So that relationship was gone. So if you killed him, it would have been shocking and it would have made you hate the Whisperers more. Instead, they killed Henry, who was a new actor from Little Henry. And you didn't have much attachment to Henry anyway.
And Enid, I thought, got a raw deal.
Enid, big deal. And Tara, big deal. And a couple of guys that threw in that were from that biker gang.
Oh, the highway patrol.
The highwaymen, 2 of them got killed. I mean, it was nice when they showed this flashback that they tried to save them.
Yeah.
Right. The highwaymen were good men. You're like, oh, they were good men. So it was fine, but it was like, I don't know if you're into sports at all.
You know that I am.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, if people watching, if you're not into sports, you may not get this reference, but a lot of times when you listen to sports radio, a fan of a team will suggest a trade.
Yeah.
And they'll say, we would like to get that superstar on the Yankees. So what we're going to do is we're going to give this guy who's a C and then a couple of like a C level talent that we don't care about, a couple of minor leaguers that aren't going to amount to anything, and then a couple of scrubs that nobody cares about. And you feel like, well, if we give them 8 or 9 people that we don't want, they're going to jump at the chance to give us that superstar, right? Anytime anyone proposes a trade on sports radio, it's always the guy who's okay, and the guy who's going to be a free agent, and then a couple of scrubs, and then some. We'll throw in some prospects, right? That's what the lineup was. It was Henry, who's like a C-level character,
who I wanted to die. Well, honestly, I wanted to die.
Enid, who was a D-level bench player, pinch hitter.
I felt bad for her though.
I
watching
did.
her parents get
Enid was a
eaten in front of her,
person, right?
Yeah, she got a raw deal. But anyway,
Tara was like the outfielder who was like hitting 240, right? She's like, okay, they killed Tara, but did you care? All right, you killed Tara. That's what it was like. Instead of killing one big person, you traded one good person for 8 scrubs.
Fair enough.
So it didn't have the impact.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Carol was upset. Her adopted son was killed, and Ezekiel was upset. And if anyone's Nick, nobody mentions Tara. Nobody's like, I miss Tara. It was like when Maggie lost her sister. Maggie never talks about her sister.
Oh yeah, Beth is just gone.
Beth is gone. Daryl never says, Maggie. I was thinking about Beth the other day. Gone. Her sister's dead. Never's like, I remember my sister would have nothing. Bye-bye.
There's a few things you mentioned there. Well, Glenn, that's obviously one of the biggest things people know about if you watch the series. And you're right, that was a jumping off point for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Rewatching it.
Straight from the comics, by the way.
I'm in for the gore. I'm somebody who has seen the Human Centipede trilogy.
No, not watching that.
More than once. So, I mean, I'm in for it all. The mistake was, I don't think necessarily killing him, but how comical they made it with his eye popping out. I just felt
that's directly from the comics. The comic, his eye pops out. He gets taunted. I just think when you read it in a black and white comic,
mm-hmm.
and you're upset because you lost people were upset in the comics. I get it. But when you are a fan of Steven Yeun and his relationship with Maggie, these are real people on a screen to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Negan kill him in he reveled in it.
Oh yeah. And he just kept pounding and pounding and pounding away his head into nothing.
That all you want at that point is within a year, if you're not binging it, for them to get revenge on Negan.
Right.
But that was the end of season 6, beginning of season 7. The war with the Saviors didn't end until halfway through season 8.
I know. Watching that back to back to back made it easier. That is something I did not enjoy week to week because there would just be episodes that didn't further the story. You are just pining for Rick's prophecy to come through where I'm not going to kill you today. I'm not going to kill you tomorrow.
Right. The same shit he told the guy in Terminus, but he actually did that.
Yeah.
And he never ends up killing Negan. That's the thing. And speaking of Negan and that arc of the year and a half, remember when he said to Spencer, you got no guts, and he killed him?
Yeah.
You tell me that guy is a guy being a tough guy for the sake of his community. The community already fears him, right? He's the leader of the Saviors. He didn't need to kill Spencer. He could have told Rick that Spencer was trying to stab him in the back. He could have punched him or beaten him up and said, he didn't need to spill his guts in the middle of the street like that.
This is the writers really trying to make Negan one of the faces of the show.
Well, because he agreed to keep doing it.
And Rick didn't, Andrew Lincoln.
Right.
I mean,
so they had to figure out in the comics, Negan doesn't have this story arc, right? He sort of joins them, if I remember correctly. I didn't read all the comics, but I think he helps them towards the end when they get to the Commonwealth. but he doesn't stay evil. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this arc they've put him on, part of it is they needed a character to have on the show because so many big names left.
Mm-hmm.
So he got lucky. So they made him this character. But you can't retcon everything like we didn't watch it. You can't go back and go, I was put on an act.
It's a bad wipe away because what they were doing, which helped his real life wife, Hillary Burton, and showing who's Lucille and showing what he was and what he went through to maybe become Negan. I don't think they fully showed the transformation until they showed when he got the bat, and that's when he wrapped, he found the barbed wire around his house, and that's when he ventured out. But to make that switch to like, I'm a stone cold killer and reveling in it, it's hard again, you're right, to walk that back. But it's different for Rick because even though he makes mistakes, he does some killings that maybe you don't agree with. There are ones that are so vindicating. Like, I really think peak Rick, I want to say this before I forget, is when it was him, Carl, and Michonne. They were trapped by the gang that Daryl ended up being recruited by, the biker gang. When Beth was taken.
The Claimers.
The Claimers, yes, the Claimers. When he bit, I think his character's name was Joe.
Yep.
His throat. To me, that is peak Walking Dead.
That was phenomenal.
Desperation amongst desperation, and I'm like, you know what? If that was happening to my family, my kids, I would absolutely turn into an animal and do this to this bad guy.
That was the badass moment of the series, I think.
I absolutely think that, and that's. But when Rick would stray away from that and not kill Negan, and I'd be like, look, like if my son died, and wrote me these letters, I'd be like, thanks. I'm going to miss you, son, but you're wrong. Negan needs to die. You can still change the world for the better, but this guy needs to die. And that's what I feel with Maggie, where, well, thanks for saving my son. I'm still going to kill you. That needs to happen. Hopefully, because I just think it would be the death of the series would be if they don't do.
I don't think she's going to kill. I don't think she's going to kill him at all because I think she's starting.
Love interest. I'm hoping that never happens.
No, I think she's starting to come around that he did an awful thing, but I think she's fallen for it because they're writing that into her character. They're making the Maggie character because they have to get along, right? They have to accomplish this thing. He has to save her son yet again. I don't know if either one of them dies at the end of this thing because, Lauren Cohan left The Walking Dead to go do that awful TV show where she played an agent or a spy. And that lasted, half a season. Maybe she's not so sure where her next meal's coming from. So maybe she stays on. At some point, Jeffrey Dean Morgan's got to be like, do I need this? And maybe he does.
Maybe he does like it. He seems to like, that because he's a costume. He's became more than just a character. And I think that's maybe why another reason why they want to make him and continue the series is that everybody was wearing Negan outfits, especially, girls were wearing it. The leather jacket.
Yeah, but did you notice? Oh, you didn't see it. There's a flashback. I'm not going to ruin anything.
Okay.
There's a flashback in Dead City episode 4 where they're trying to make it look like Negan meets the Croat, which is a stupid name.
Thank you for mentioning that.
I know it's short for Croatian.
No, hearing Maggie say the Croat, like I want to, I would have laughed every time.
If they had called him the Croatian, I would have been like, I'll get it. But it took 3 episodes to explain he was from Croatia, and that's why he's calling himself the Croat. Because it just sounded like a comic book name. Like he whistled, the Croat with her accent, the Croat.
Okay.
Okay, Maggie Ree. So yeah, that's a stupid name. And then to retcon that he was part of the Saviors, and they're talking about him like he was a savior. So they do a flashback and they show him as a savior with Negan. They go back to the time of the Saviors, and Negan isn't wearing the red scarf. He's not dressed like Negan. And it doesn't look like Negan. It looks like it's clearly Jeffrey Dean Morgan, but they didn't bother to make him look like Jeffrey Dean Morgan back then enough. He still kind of looks like today's Negan, skinny and whatever. So
when we're done with this, I'm going to watch episode 4 because at some point we're going to have to.
It has moments, but it has a lot more. Oh, you got to be kidding me.
Oh, I'm sure.
And
'cause I
Twitter
have
loves it. Twitter loves the new show. Loves it. Oh my God, another great episode. Oh my God, Negan and Maggie did this. Negan and Maggie did that. I don't want to be a poo-pooer of everything. You know, there's things I like, but it's the fact that I'm from New York. Number one, it's odd watching that. It's clearly not New York. I get it, but the scope of New York, you've got to do a better job of explaining. Just take a few extra minutes and write in how a sheriff finds them in all of Manhattan. Show me how the little girl survives on her own and then survives. Wait till you see her in this episode, in episode 4. You're like, what? It doesn't make any sense. I understand you're watching a zombie apocalypse. You're supposed to suspend disbelief about the fact that zombies exist. I'm fine with that, but the show still needs to make sense.
You are right. And because I could easily, like with the Fear the Walking Dead and Far Beyond or whatever, I can just
World Beyond, yeah.
World Beyond. I didn't care. I can just bounce out because again, Walking Dead is the baby. That's what I liked, and I really enjoyed it the second time around. But I want to spend the last few minutes of us chatting to talk about, because I want to see the Daryl spinoff, because I just thought he was consistently the best character, where he didn't stray ever too much from his core, where it was the Rick ride was fun, but there are moments like you're like, come on, man. Like, even though him and Daryl were my favorite characters, but Daryl was just basically consistent of like who he kind of was. And I really appreciated that. And I also don't want this to get lost. Merle may be the most lovable racist of all time. He's a racist bigot, but man, was he a fun character to watch.
Merle was great. No argument. I don't know if I loved him. I love the character, but I never was like, oh, I hope he'll be okay.
There were little glimpses of just like, he's just a product of his environment. You know,
yeah,
like the
I get that, but it doesn't mean I like him. I can feel bad for him. I feel bad they were raised by an abusive father in a small town and with no means. He was abused. Oh, I can understand and be compassionate, but I never rooted for him because I didn't think he showed the compassion that Daryl did. And maybe he needed to be the tough older brother to keep them alive. I get that. You know,
he was kind of like character. the Shane to Rick, in that kind of dynamic where he kind of knew almost. I mean, yeah, he obviously went too far with certain things, especially with the name calling, which I was not a fan of. That he just knew what needed to be done to survive, so to speak. Maybe more so than Daryl, but Daryl also knows how to survive. But Daryl would have these moments of just like letting his guard down, but obviously survived it all. So I'm just curious to see where his life is like now, especially since with Carol, who has just really been on this roller coaster ride of just weak, strong, which is relatable because she's has lost a lot and has been through a lot.
Well, and I'm wondering what role she plays on the show, because originally it was the Daryl and Carol show. And then she announced that she wanted to take a time away and she wasn't going to be on the show. Now, the actress who plays Carol is a phenomenal actress, but I haven't seen her doing any side projects or big movies. And, you know, it's a shame because she's such a great actress, but maybe she was holding out for more money. Maybe she was like, no, I don't need to do this. And because they were lowballing her, or maybe they weren't paying her as much as they were paying Daryl, Norman Reedus, and maybe she wasn't going to take less because she's back on the show. Now, whether she's back every episode, somehow she's in France.
Right. Somehow she got there.
Because it's not like it was in Georgia. The scenes that she's in that have been leaked to the public, she's in France.
Okay.
Now, I don't know how Daryl ended up in France. They try to make it look like he was on a boat and it floated to France, but that doesn't sound right.
And I'll say, like the last season or two, when they would have solo Carol episodes or solo Daryl episodes, which I was not a fan of those solo episodes.
Oh, the bottle episodes, yeah.
But I appreciated them so much more when binging. I just felt they created a more well-rounded story because that was the whole point of it. But when you're waiting a week and then you just get that and nothing else is furthered, I found that frustrating as a fan at that time. So I appreciated it more, especially the episode with the guy from Terminator, Richard Patrick, when he kept
Oh, in the warehouse.
in the warehouse with Gabe and what's his robot arms, Aaron,
Oh, right.
prisoner. And by the way, the thing I completely forgot during the rewatch, how did Priest Gabe go from just being a whimpering wuss
To a badass.
to a badass banging every chick? Like what he got with Pollyanna McIntosh,
Yep.
Jadis,
Yep.
he got
Rosita.
Rosita. I'm like, what? And this is after he lost his eye. Like, and I will also say, I think it's very funny. It's very Simpsons-esque that both Maggie when she returned and Gabe when he's a badass, all you have to do is add a hat. Just wear a hat, and you've completely changed character, and you're more badass than you were the season before. It's like the Malibu Stacy. No, it's different. She has a new hat.
Well, the actor who played Father Gabriel actually said that he requested hats. He would that was part of what you just said.
Okay.
That he felt that it changed who he was when he wore a hat.
That's so funny. I remember that character. It's not a show I need to rewatch is Oz. I remember him just being fantastic in Oz.
Oh, it was a great show.
And before I forget, Dale, it was interesting. I saw this maybe, I don't know, maybe it was a few years ago. I realized the movie The Mist, that both Andrea and Dale are in there. So it's very interesting to see them like acting together as just completely different actors. I always find that really amusing when you see actors that would played something together in another film and they kind of just followed along, and now they're in a new series, new film, which was kind of, I don't know, it's just kind of cool because you're just kind of visualizing them as somebody else. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do. Yep.
So I'm just trying to think of who else, because again, I wanted to just quickly mention with the notes, Jesus. I would have mentioned Jesus, that his beard
Tom Payne.
completely fake. As somebody with a beard, his beard looked weird. And also the amount of time
His beard was real.
I know it was real, but it looked fake.
Oh, okay.
Because I guess this is a larger issue that, you would see people like Rick, all disheveled and grow beards, but then you would have some actors like they're so shaped, their mustache and their beard, when this one guy, like certain dreads, like even the King's Ezekiel's, like his dreads were always perfect. Like everything is it was. Well,
look at Negan in Dead City. He's got
like
product in his hair.
He always had the perfect like buzz on the sides and the top. I'm like, he's able to look like a hipster.
And how are there fat people? How are there still fat people? And speaking of which, on Dead City, how they're doing the same thing Survivor did. Remember the first couple of seasons of Survivor? It was old people and fat people and ugly women. No offense to those people. But then when the show got successful, everybody became hot on the show. Right? That's what The Walking Dead is now.
Yeah, you're right.
The cast of Dead City is all really good looking people, except the Croat guy, but he's an actor, fine. But like the people from the Rebellion, the muscular bald guy and his pretty girlfriend, and where are the normal looking people in the apocalypse?
I agree. And that's why I liked the first few seasons. It was a mix of good looking and
where's Dale?
Where's Dale?
Right? Where is that guy?
With the Dale face. But I guess what I mentioned with Jesus, I just thought it was so funny the amount of times they used the word Jesus, like, oh, Jesus Christ. That wasn't his name when they weren't talking about him. So it was just like overkill of the word Jesus. I guess as like a wannabe writer, you couldn't say holy cow. Like, why do you have to keep saying Jesus's name when you're not talking about Jesus? Again, Rick, that's just the story I'm holding on to. So we know that it's no longer, I guess, too much time passed, that people aren't interested in movies. They're making a series about it with Michonne.
No, I think they never had a script for the movie. And then COVID happened. They kept delaying the movie. Every time they're like, oh, the movie's going to be out in July. We're going to start production in January. They never started production. They never had a script they liked. And to do 3 movies, I couldn't figure out a way that they made any sense. Because if they take place after The Walking Dead, right, then it's going to end with they're never going to see anybody again, right?
Right.
If it took place before the end of The Walking Dead, then they'd have to come back and join the show. But what if the show killed people that they wanted to have in the movie? Right? It could only happen after The Walking Dead ended.
Or they would have to know the plan. They would have to know where it's going. And you would see people from The Walking Dead go into the movie.
Right.
You
And
know,
then
it's
how
just
do you explain if Michonne goes to look for Rick, right? Or Carol or Daryl, whoever originally was going to go to look for Rick. You already know that 8 years go by and they don't find him, right? Because it was a time jump. Judith got older. There was a time jump. And so he's gone 8 or 9 years. How do you explain he never came back? So they're going to try to explain how he never came back. But then he never goes back to Alexandria because there's no reunion, right? Michonne leaves and the show ended. It just didn't seem to me like there was a way to do 3 movies if the show wasn't going to continue. If
I
the
just want
show
a
was going to
resolution. I mean,
if the show was going to continue for 10 years, you could
Right.
do 3 movies and then bring him back, right? Michonne would come back with him and maybe they would come back to then go off on their own, but you'd have to see them come back. There'd have to be some resolution. Daryl has to see Rick again.
Yeah.
But once they announced the show is ending, I'm like, there's never going to be movies.
Hmm.
Never. So let's just give them what they want. Do 6 episodes, self-contained, and it'll end with a happy ending and they'll be done with it. Or they can kill him if they want. They could, but he's talking about now how he misses the character.
Either way, that arc, I mean, he was the show, needs to be completed. There's just this hole there that rewatching it, I'm just like, I don't know. It's not going to continue. You're not going to, I don't know if you're going to find things out on these spin-off shows, Dead City, or I don't know if you're going to find out any answers. So it's just rewatching that. It's just like, what was their plan? And they have to have something, because has there ever been a show like that where they don't kill him off, obviously, but
I
take
think
your main
they didn't have
character
a
off
plan.
and never explain it? Or they
didn't have a plan.
They didn't.
Andrew
Yeah.
Lincoln wanted off the show. He wanted to spend more time with his family in London. Now,
How selfish.
why you couldn't film the show in London? Just find a forest and let them film there? I don't know.
I guess.
Why he couldn't have been kidnapped to London and then continue the show, let him do The Walking Dead London? There seemed to have been ways they could have handled it. But that being said, he gave them an extra season. He had originally wanted off after the Saviors, and then he was like going to make season 8 his last season, and they were like, no, let's finish. I'll give you one more, and then they got him through half of 9, right?
Right. Yeah.
I don't think they thought, they were like, oh, we'll just write him out. We'll figure it out later. We don't know what's going to happen. There may have been a point where he said, I never want to do this again, where they didn't need to write him out, where you just assumed he'd be fixed up and healthy and then be fine. Or they would talk about him in the past. I think when he said, I'm willing to do some work again, they were like, okay, we got to figure out a plot now. Let's see who the CRM is, because they knew he was leaving for a year. So that's why the CRM thing, the helicopter, Jadis eating the can of food. But I don't know if the scavengers, or whatever they were called, if the garbage pail kids, I don't know if when they arrived in season 8, right, if Andrew Lincoln had already said he was leaving.
Okay.
And if they had already thought about using Jadis to get him off the show.
Okay.
I don't know if that, which came first, the chicken or the egg, that they didn't start like going, oh, how can we use the junkyard people as a way to write Rick off? Oh, okay. They're trading people for food, right? Who's an A, who's a B?
It was a B, right?
Right. When she said, when she said to Father Gabriel, I thought you were an A, but you're a B. I thought that meant A, you're an alpha leader. Like, I thought they were recruiting alphas, like really hardcore, badass people. But didn't it mean infected?
Well, when she ended up bringing Rick back, she's like, well, I have a B, I have it, right? Like, I have a B.
Right.
now.
An A meant, eventually they changed it to an A meant you were infected. Like she wanted Negan to get bitten, right? They almost had the thing on the mattress, the springboard, the spring box spring rather, eat him. They were going to have him bitten because they wanted to test freshly bitten people.
Okay.
And she says, I thought you were an A, but I thought you were a B, but you're an A. But I thought that was a compliment. Did she mean I thought I loved you, but now I'm going to have you bitten? So it didn't make any sense. It sounded like they changed what they wanted. It was like when they kidnapped Heath, right?
Heath. That's the name I was thinking of before, how his hair was always perfect.
Perfect hair.
Yeah,
and
come on.
Heath was kidnapped. They then retconned it and made it that he was kidnapped by Jadis's people. Because there was no Jadis when he was kidnapped. They wrote him off the show because he wanted to go do 24.
Okay.
But that was season 6, right? Or beginning of season. Yeah, right. Season 6.
Yeah, that
Heath
was the middle of
disappeared.
the series. Yeah.
Nobody cared. Heath. That was the bottle episode with Heath and Tara, which is one of the lowest rated, lowest reviewed episodes in the show's history,
Yeah.
according to IMDb. So Heath left, and we're like, who cares about Heath? What do I care? He's gone. He was only on the show like 3 times. Who cares? Right?
Oh,
Why do I
yeah.
need a Tara Heath episode? Write the guy off. I didn't need a big to-do that he got kidnapped. Then they went back and said he was kidnapped by the junkyard people who were 2 years away from even existing. So that was red. And then they had the card that said PPP on it. And they never explained what PPP meant. But PPP in music means soft or whispering. So people thought that was a clue to the whisperers. But why would the whisperers need a magnetic key card to unlock doors? Now they're saying that's a CRM card because they were CRM people kidnapping Heath for Jadis, and that Heath may show up eventually in the Rick movies. Who cares?
I'm impressed you're able to keep track. Like, of all this. I just
got warmed
rewatched
up again. At the beginning of this podcast, I had trouble remembering names, but I'm back in. I'm back in, baby.
Oh, I love it. Well, again, we got to do this again because we can keep talking forever. But I just want to, before I forget, because it's the last like season, just mention the Commonwealth and those friggin' outfits, those like stormtroopers with the butt flap. Like, I don't understand how you can make that and on set and be like, this looks cool with the butt flap. Like, it would just take me out of it. Like, Mercer was one of the few later season characters that I actually liked. But it's like, as soon as he turns around, I'm like, he's got his butt protected from being bit, and it would just kind of take me out of the moment. Or maybe I'm just a weirdo looking at his plastic butt.
My problem with those costumes, uniforms, whatever they were, right, is that there were gaps in the joints.
Right.
Well,
so
how many of them got bitten in the gaps? A couple of them got bitten by walkers in the gaps. Why are there gaps? Why don't you have chainmail? Aren't you fully protected? You shouldn't be biteable.
That's why the butt was so obvious, because he was just perfectly shaped around the 2 cheeks. And I'm just like, what is this? And that was like the one thing, like I remember, going back and watching the Commonwealth storyline was those outfits, and paying more attention to the characters, and again, not really caring too much about them. The Commonwealth season, and just kind of petering out. And yeah, watching the last episode, they did a lot of flashbacks and trying to bring things around. And again, it all just leaves you like, yeah, they're having these spinoffs, but not answering the Rick thing. It just leaves you wanting more.
Yeah, well, that's next year. So we'll see the Rick thing.
We'll see.
Speaking of relating to the original show, before we get out of here, on Walking Dead, Dead City, allegedly, because they're not filming in where they used to film, Maggie is still at Hilltop, right? She says, oh, it's the same people, new location. When she says, oh, I'm going to have Jenny stay with the people of Hilltop. Well, the people of Hilltop aren't the same people from the show, but it's supposed to be right after. So are you telling me you couldn't show me Diane the Archer? Like, you couldn't pay her a few bucks to be there? So you go, oh, wow, look, it's Diane it's Hilltop.
That's
you
what
couldn't have had anyone from Hilltop actually be there, even if you never show them again. Show me Hilltop. Show me 1 or 2 people from the old show, and you can go, okay, it's actually a continuation. This is great.
I always find that I'll mention this because I am watching. Well, I said how my wife doesn't like horror, but I actually convinced her to watch.
Married to you, so
I convinced her though to watch Yellow Jackets. I don't know if you've seen.
I haven't seen that, Brando. I haven't seen that.
I'm liking it so far.
Okay.
It's do you know what it's about?
I know there's some Terminus elements in there.
Yeah, a little, a soccer team. They get stranded on an island. They can go to cannibalism, whatever. But so we're in like starting the 2nd season now. And when shows do this, and you're alluding to it now with The Walking Dead, and I see it on Lost, that just characters just pop out of nowhere that were supposed to be there the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
You're just like making it up, like, oh yeah, this person was from Hilltop. They were there the entire time. But then show me, like, as a viewer, you want some continuation. That's why when you pick these actors and actresses, it's a big deal who plays who. It's not right. It's a big deal. That's why you couldn't recast Rick. It's not a soap opera.
Well, I know what you're saying about, like, oh, that person lived at Hilltop for 4 years, and then they suddenly show up, and you're like, oh, there's a new character, but then Maggie talks to them like they've been at Hilltop forever.
Right.
There's a famous scene from Star Trek, The Wrath of Khan, which was 1982, maybe. It's a long time ago, everybody. But Khan is an evil guy. He was on an episode of Star Trek, right? The original TV show. And then years later, many years later, they made a movie about his character, right? So what on the TV show, no spoiler, it's 50 years ago. This evil guy Khan tries to take over the Enterprise, and he's got people, and he's trying to find a new home for them, a new planet. And they realize he's so evil, but they're going to help him, and they beam him down to a planet with his people because they feel like it's an inhabitable planet. And you know what? You can go get your own planet. You can't have the Enterprise, but we're not going to kill you. We're going to give you your own planet. Fine. Well, the movie takes place, I don't know, 20 years later, 15 years later. And for whatever reason, either they go down to that planet. I'm trying to remember the movie, but somehow they run into Khan years later. And apparently the planet was desolate, that they sent them down to a planet they said was a nice planet, but it was shit. And now he's mad at them, and he wants revenge on the Enterprise for sending him to this awful planet. And he's got them in a lineup, 4 of them. And he's looking at them, the 4 men he captures on the planet who had beamed down to the planet. And he says, and one of them was Chekhov, who's one of the Russian guy on the show. He's on the show, but he wasn't on the original show. He sort of joined the show like after 3 seasons or 2 seasons. And he says, I don't know you. I don't know you. And he points to Chekhov and he goes, but you, I never forget a face, implying that he remembers him from the TV show. And then Chekhov says, I'll never forget you, what you did you imprisoned us and you, whatever. Well, Chekhov, the actor, was never on wasn't on the episode that he's referencing. And the actors didn't either realize it, or you think they would, right? That he would go, I wasn't on that episode. But then when people questioned it after the movie came out, the writers were like, oh, he was on the show. He was on the Enterprise, but he was down in engineering. So even though we didn't see him, he was on the ship. And Khan has such a photographic memory, he remembered the entire crew of the Enterprise.
I know. It's just a lazy thing.
Right. Wouldn't you?
I know.
Wouldn't you just rewrite it and go, hey, I remember seeing you down by engineering, but he's like, I'll never forget you. And you're like, he wasn't even on the show. How do you not? And why doesn't the actor say it? Like, I don't get it.
I don't know. And that's why we create podcasts to talk about it.
Yes, to complain.
Yeah, because you couldn't do that in the days of Star Trek. So now we got Twitter, we got podcasting, we got all these.
Well, we have Threads. Don't forget, we have Threads now.
I have yet to join that. I don't know if I don't know. I'm always the last person. I was the last person to join Facebook because that's when it was just.
Do you have an Instagram account?
Oh yeah. Well, this is where I'm. Yes,
Threads.
Appetite for Horror. The number 4 is on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I know it's an Instagram thing, but it's just one more social media thing to do. It's like,
well, they make it very easy, but I'll tell you, it's like Twitter with nothing. It's Twitter with no bonuses, it's like buying a car without air conditioning.
Okay.
It may be a nice car, and there may be nice people in the car with you. And it may be from the car company you're familiar with and you like, but imagine the car having no wheels and no power windows and no air conditioning.
Well, I'm going to wait. Like I said, honestly, with every single social media craze, I was the last person to do it. So yeah, I'm on the main ones now, but there's not an appetite for horror threads just yet. We'll see where this goes. We're going to see where this podcast goes.
But check out me at David Brody, Brody, on all social media platforms that are worthwhile. And check out my The Brooklyn Boys podcast at The Brooklyn Boys on all social media as well, or most of it.
David, this was so much fun just to catch up with you as a person and just to talk about The Walking Dead. I feel like a weight has been lifted because I've been itching to talk about it. Because yeah, I crammed 11 seasons in like a month and a half. So I'm excited. So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Horror. When is the next one? Well, I don't know. Follow along on social media. I'm always watching horror movies with my son, Horrorson. So just follow along. And maybe it'll be fun as we get older. As he gets older, I'll watch some of my favorites with him and see what it's like through the lens of a young child.
And hide the sharp objects from him.
Oh, yeah. I don't actually want him. We'll do fake blood. No, none of the real stuff. None of the real stuff. Then when it comes to that, I am an overbearing Jewish mother. Yeah, no, he's
Good.
going to be protected. But when it comes to movies, well, again, he's not going to start with Human Centipede like me. It'll be like Tales
Right.
from
Wait
the
till he's
Crypt,
5.
Monster Squad. That will, maybe we'll start there.
Fair.
Anyway, so that does it for this episode. When will we see the next one? Not sure yet. So just follow on social media, and you can watch this, of course, on the Appetite for Distortion YouTube page. So until next time, I gotta think of a good goodbye saying. I have a good one for the podcast.
How about like don't die?
That's a good one. This is Brando saying, "Don't die."